Hey, how are y'all? Happy Saturday. Excuse me, my days are all mixed up. This is Sunday. I wish it was Saturday. The weekend just, it goes so fast. We don't even really get a chance to enjoy ourselves. So, happy Sunday. Welcome to Scared of Beautiful. My name is Plez. Thank you all for joining me, my beauties and bows. I'm so happy you can be with me on this afternoon. This video, we are going to cover the last episode of Married at First Sight. If you are new here, please like the video. Be sure to leave your comments, subscribe to the channel. For my faithful supporters, my beauties and my bows, thank you so much for choosing to spend your Sunday afternoon with me. And if you are catching the replay, thank you for doing that too. Again, leave me some comments after the video. Let's drive this engagement up. And we have two small rules here. One, we will always be respectful with our comments, so no disrespectful or derogatory comments are allowed. This is a safe space of like-minded people. Secondly, if we do some call-ins, you just have to show your face. No face, no place on my platform. I want to see you and also hear your opinions on this episode. Thank you all so much in the chat. Pretty Mrs. G, thank you for being here. One of my faithful moderators. I love you. Thank you for your support and your time. DGF627, like number 8. I don't know what like number 8 is, but thank you. Kamiko Abufer. Oh, you are like number 8. Thank you for being like number 8. Kamiko, hey sis, how are you? You all are just speaking to each other. Hey, 504 girl. All right, let's get into it. Quasia, hi, how are you? Belize and JB, how are you today? Sharon F, good afternoon. And Midwife Crystal. All right, y'all. This episode was a lot of things. Let's get into the name of the episode was Tears, Jeers, and 25-cent Martinis. And we know who had the 25-cent Martinis, Myrla. She had all of them apparently. But it was fun to see her like that, like actually let loose and not be so pinned up all the time. Let's do Rachel and Jose first because they were the least problematic. They actually didn't even have that many segments this episode. So in this episode, we are about 2.5 weeks before decision day. So the couples were meeting with both Pastor Cal. One spouse had to meet with Pastor Cal. The other spouse had to meet with good old Dr. Pepper and ask the hard questions. What questions, what answers do they need? What do they need to be communicating to each other in these next 2.5 weeks that will help solidify their decision or help them make their decision if it hasn't already been solidified by decision day? It's time for the hard talks, the hard conversations, and this group struggles with that. So Rachel and Jose, they are one of the couples, along with probably Gil and Myrla, who are doing the best. I have a positive outlook that they may stay together on decision day. So they had the least amount of problems this episode. The first thing y'all know, I'm like super observant when it comes to these shows. When Jose walked in to meet with Dr. Pepper, I couldn't help but notice when he reached out to hug her, it was super. I don't know if he was like trying to give the super like church hug, not get too close up on her because she's an older woman. So he didn't want to like, I don't know, insinuate any type of anything and make sure there was some separation there. But it resulted in this booty tooch that I laughed at pretty much the whole night because I'm like, he's like, stick your pelvis out, make sure you don't have any contact. Oh, Jose. He's such a funny little man to me, but that's neither here nor there. Um, he sings Rachel's praises. He loves the choice that the experts made for him. He thinks they were an excellent match. He says that in their relationship, though, he is struggling with the balance of feeling like a provider versus being too controlling. He thinks everything that he's doing, everything that he has outlined for his wife, for their future, are just signs of being a good man, a stand-up man, and wanting to be a provider. He does not understand how these things can be viewed as controlling, but he does acknowledge that Rachel has stated that she feels the tendency that he's a bit controlling and she doesn't want to be controlled in a relationship. Dr. Pepper gives him really good advice that you are kind of controlling, but that also you have to try to look through someone else's eyes. You have to try to put yourself in Rachel's shoes as a fully grown woman, as a quote unquote independent woman, and also consider what her thoughts are on the marriage, what the vision is that she wants for her life, and more so for their life together, not just how he already thinks and has everything planned out. He has to make space for her and her opinions as well, and let her be an active participant into their marriage and creating that vision. I completely agree. He also voices that he is scared that Rachel has a tendency to leave when things get rough. This makes him feel rejected and that she doesn't want to be there. He wants to know what he can do to make her not want to leave. And Dr. Pepper again gives great advice and says, you need to ask her, what do you need from me as a husband to create trust in me and my character to where you see me as your forever husband? She reminds him that Rachel has seen a very negative side of him with his anger in the situation of her calling him Johnny and then cursing her out and ultimately locking her out of the apartment. That display of anger doesn't help build trust. And it doesn't. It makes people run because the response was way above the incident, the offense, the slight, whatever he felt from her mixing up a name. It went way too far, and because of one incident, he veered into a very verbally abusive space, in a controlling space that no one wants to see. Like no woman wants to see that. D says Rachel knows that what Jose did, the cussing out and locking her out, is a tremendous red flag. Rachel is preparing to say no at decision day. Interesting. I think Rachel's still going to, well, right now, I think Rachel is going to say yes, because when we talk about when they got back together, honey, she still thinks Jose is the bee's knees or whatever. But he really does need to work on that. I do like that he, at least on the surface level, seems to be open to exploring some of his issues and working on them. And that's really all that you can ask. I mean, these people did get married at first sight. So it's kind of you get what you get and try to work from there. I think if they were dating, she probably definitely would have left him and not considered continued the relationship. But since they're already married and she wants to make the marriage work, this is kind of what you have to do. Next, we see Rachel with Pastor Cal. She believes Jose is the man for her. She wants to get to know him more, become more intimate with him, more vulnerable with him. She also wants to know what he needs. She has been doing a lot of talking and been very expressive about what she will tolerate, what she won't tolerate. And Jose hasn't really said any of those things to her. He's just been kind of going with the flow. But she wants to know what makes him tick. She wants him to be more expressive, more open. She has one big question about the lockup. Well, excuse me. This shows to her that he has a very bad temper and that he can be vindictive. And I think for me, the vindictive nature of it all was worse than the temper. People have tempers when they get angry, but when someone is vindictive or vengeful, for me, those are big character flaws and some red flags that are pretty much on my, non-negotiable list. Um, Rachel says that she's out. Pastor Cal is like, well, this won't be your only disagreement. And he's absolutely right. Every relationship, no matter how good or blissful it may be, has arguments. It's never the argument, it is how you respond to the argument. And right now, his response is alarming. So Rachel says, look, I'm out if it happens again. And I don't blame her. Rachel also wants to talk about triggers with Jose. What was the trigger that made him respond the way that he responded? Rachel says that her instinct is to leave, but she has realized that she needs to change. She's not single Rachel anymore, so she can't hop up and leave every time something happens. When they get back together to talk about their individual conversations with the experts, Jose asks her, like, why do you leave? And she lets him know, this has been my pattern. I am actively trying to change it. Jose says that he needs to vocalize to her when he needs space and time in an argument. That was his answer to the trigger question. I don't think that was really a full answer. But again, this is super early, 6 weeks in? So maybe he is not ready to share what his triggers are. He may not even know how to verbalize his triggers yet, but it really should have been a more in-depth answer. I do, again, though, like the self-work that he's doing to at least be aware that, hey, when I get upset, I need time and I need to be able to vocalize. I need some time right now. Let's talk about this tomorrow without immediately jumping to cursing, screaming, and locking people out. Rachel also affirms that he has her trust. She is his wife and she wants to continue being his wife. So far, they look like they're willing to work on their issues. I think with time, they can have more deep conversations, go beyond the surface level. They're trying to get there, but I still think some of their answers barely touch what's really going on with them. Midwife Crystal says, Rachel will likely say yes on decision day. I hope they're broken up by the reunion. Oh, you don't see it for them. You just want them to stay together. Okay. This 504 girl says, I'm on the fence with Jose. I think he's a ginger snap. Pretty Mrs. G says that's scary. It is. He has to get a hold on it. And he has to think about the other person. He is like a lot of the men that they chose this season. He's so into this perfectionism, this ideal, this vision of what a woman should be. And honestly, that's just not realistic. Every person that you date is going to have something that you don't like. That is why it is important to know yourself, but also to get a clear understanding for yourself, not even for the other person, of what your deal breakers are, what your non-negotiables are. Some stuff, you have to cut it off at the head. And I think because a lot of these individuals in these couples don't really know themselves and haven't done that type of work of like, okay, let me make my list. This is what I want. This is what would be nice. But what are my absolutes? And yes, there are some deal breakers, non-negotiables, absolutes that you don't deviate from. But it should not be like a list of 100 things. You also have to be realistic in that because, no, again, no one is going to be perfect. No one's going to check off every box that you have. And that's where the whole like 80-20 rule that people talk about comes in. Like, usually you'll get 80% of what you need and want. And again, have your small list of the things that you absolutely won't deviate from. And I think that'll help a lot of them. Let's get to Gil and Myrla, because I think, like I said, they're the next most like non-problematic couple, and it's a good thing to see. Like, it is so good to see them enjoying each other, really starting to grow and learn each other. I really like that for both of them, and I hope they continue to do it. We see them together doing things as a couple more than we see the other couples. So I don't know if this is just some of the editing that's going on, but we can see that Gil and Myrla are actively trying to get to know each other. They're making space for the other in each other's lives. Like, they're commingling things at this point. They've already started talking about looking for a joint apartment. The first kind of scene we see them in this episode, they were working out and eating breakfast together. That was really cute to see them doing those things, investing into the physical development of the other, but then also just spending quality time. Gil thinks he meets with Pastor Cal, and Pastor Cal asks him if he knows why they were matched. Gil thinks that they were paired based on their personality. He says that she is caring, she's loving, and he is very passionate. He said that they get along very well and that they are honest with each other as well. The unanswered questions that he has are about Myrla's moodiness, that she can be very short and negative, basically a Debbie Downer. Pastor Cal asks, will the negativity and tantrums be too much for him ultimately? And Gil says yes. So far, he has addressed it with Myrla and let her know that her negativity is not going to affect him. He is not going to let her put a damper on his spirit and change who he fundamentally is as a person. He says that she's used to getting her way, that she is an alpha, and that she will run over him if she can. And I like that about Gil. Again, like, he has studied her, he pays attention to her personality, to how she moves, and makes it clear that he's not going to take it. He is going to stand up and assert himself. I actually like him and respect him for that. And I think Myrla does too. I think that's something that really excites her and kind of turns her on, that she has met a man that will not just give in to her every whim and everything that she wants. He is going to indulge her to a certain extent, but he draws the line where he needs to draw the line, and he asserts himself. And I really like that. Cal again advises him to address the negativity and the impact that it's having on their relationship and the impact that it could have with them moving forward. Myrla comes up to meet with Dr. Pepper. She has been out for 25-cent martinis with her girlfriends. Myrla is lit. Like, she comes in the complete wrong way. She's like, I didn't feel like walking that far. She was very giggly, very, and again, we've never seen her like that. She did not let her hair down like that at the bachelorette party. She wasn't really like that at the wedding. So this is the first time I know the audience, I think, seeing her more relaxed and not so pretentious. So I really like that. Dr. Pepper lays into her a little bit though. asks her what questions does she need answered to say yes on decision day. Myrla says, what does he need from me? That's a question that she wants answered. What is she not doing enough of? And I really like that, again, she is wanting to know how she can please Gil and make his life happier and easier. Dr. Pepper brings up the fact that she is a very negative and critical person. Myrla says, I am. I cannot bite my tongue. I'm very blunt. Dr. Pepper reminds her that a constant rain of criticism changes the mood and can be very problematic. I agree. No one wants a constant rain cloud over them. And, if you've watched some of my reviews before, that was, I know, my initial issue with Myrla and a lot of other people's initial issue with Myrla. She has changed and grown leaps and bounds, I think, in front of our eyes, or either production isn't showing as much of her tantrums as we used to see. But yeah, initially it's a lot. It's a lot that someone can't walk into a space where you're just trying to get to know someone or have fun without overly criticizing everything that they see and do. It takes the fun out of it. Everything will not always be up to your standards, but especially if you're in a group setting, you just go with the flow. You just have fun. And when it's your turn to plan the group outing or the double date or whatever you're doing, you get to then make it up to your standards. But everyone doesn't have the same budget. Everyone doesn't have the same salary or income. So you really have to learn to just enjoy the moment. Enjoy the people. Find something you like. If it's only your husband, cling to that, girl. But, again, what comes up don't have to come out. Just because you think it don't mean you have to say it. So even if you start thinking, oh, what's that? Oh my God, what? They couldn't get a better couch than this? Like, just think it. Don't say it. Don't say it. Like, don't say it. And that's just a lesson that she needs to learn in life. Like, I can't imagine how she acts at work. Like, you please don't do that. But Myrla says that she's happy. Gil is very thoughtful. She got above and beyond what she prayed and asked for, and she gets emotional. Like, this is the first time we see Myrla being emotional. She gets emotional when speaking about Gil and how happy she is with their match. Dr. Pepper kind of brings down the mood, but again, admonishes her to work on her negativity because she doesn't want to ruin what could be a possibly wonderful marriage and relationship with the constant negativity. Next, we see Gil and Myrla get together to talk about their individual conversations. He expresses to her that his mood is sometimes affected by her negativity. She says, I get moody and kind of just in my way because I am an introvert. I get very moody and needy when there are lots of other people around, and you love to have lots of other people around. He asks how he can help her in those types of situations. And she says, well, actually, you already do. You make me laugh. And I think making her laugh helps disarm her and it helps her feel more comfortable in her surroundings. So I'm glad that he does that. And I hope he continues to do that. She asked, what can she do to make it better? And he says, don't get moody in the first place. I think she can grow to that place again by just kind of like switching her mindset to focus on the positive. Like I said, find whatever one thing that's positive about that situation or the environment that you're in and focus on that. Don't go down the rabbit hole of negativity. Just like what she said that she did with Gil. She didn't focus on his bald head that she traditionally doesn't like. She focused on his heart, his character, everything that she saw him doing, his actions. So just do that with everybody else. If she does, get in a mood, because look, we're all human. if she gets in a mood and she feels like she's being negative, Gil then asks her to at least consider others and maybe, remove yourself or just not impose those beliefs on others. So I think that kind of goes back to what I was saying in terms of, even if you're negative and moody and just not feeling it, just kind of try to swallow it down. Maybe remove yourself from the situation. Tell him, look, guys, I'd love to meet you all. I'm happy that we're hosting or whatever. Or even if you're not hosting, if you're at someone else's event, if there's a way that you can dismiss yourself, again, after you've spoken and been cordial, like, hey, I had a long day at work today. I'm going to bow out. Like, whatever. But just don't change the whole mood. Sometimes we sit there and we try to push through when really we should just graciously dismiss ourselves. Because if your energy is that you truly don't want to be there, usually it's going to emanate. And I'm telling you from experience. I am traditionally an introverted person, and sometimes I will try to be like, they invited me, they clearly want me there, so let me just put on my happy face and try to, be a team player. And sometimes you're successful, and sometimes you're not, and that's okay. But just be aware of that and don't let your feelings affect the whole operation, right? Okay. So he also says that she can be more affectionate in that moment because he notices that she is less moody and needy when she is affectionate. So if she, just wants to give him a hug, get closer with him, and Myrla almost tells on herself, y'all. She's like, I need to be more affectionate than I already am. And he's like, what are you talking about? I think the goose or whatever was in those martinis had loosened Myrla up a little bit too much because, y'all, after this episode, I am like 90% sure that they have done the do. Like, I think it's done. I think it's in the bag. I think maybe because of her profession or both, her wanting to be a more private person, that they have just decided to tell the cameras that they haven't consummated the marriage. But I think they have. And if they didn't already, they probably did after 25-cent martini night. That's just me. But they're into it. Midwife Crystal says, I love Tipsy Myrla. It's nice to know she can let her hair down after all. Lee Pepper says, I like Myrla. Gil, he's okay. Okay. Denise Marshall says, I agree. I love Gil. Francois, hi. How are you? Thank you for joining me today. Pretty Mrs. G says, excellent advice, players. Control your own emotions because it's not about you. That's what we have to learn how to do. That's all we can do is regulate ourselves. This 504 girl, me too, players. All right. I'm glad you all agree. And if you disagree, I appreciate that as well. That is what we want here. Open and honest discourse. Now, let's get to these other hot messes. Let's go to the easiest hot mess, which is Ryan and Brett. I don't understand why this is so hard. I really like them on paper. I really like Brett. Ryan is cool, but I really like Brett. And I want her to try to use this experiment as a way to better herself. And unfortunately, I think this experiment will just push her further back in her shell. So I hope once they get through decision day, because I think at this point they definitely will be saying no. I hope she doesn't internalize what happened in this situation too much, but instead it inspires her to, work on ways to have a more positive experience in relationships moving forward. Um, like I said, I don't think Ryan is a horrible person. I think he asks for a lot without giving a lot. He has been stuck from day one on her not being his type. Although, like I've said before, I don't think it is just about physical type. I think it is also her personality. She admittedly has high anxiety in for someone who doesn't struggle with anxiety, or at least whose anxiety doesn't present in that same way, that can be a lot. It's a lot. Um Also, the fact that she's not as adventurous as him. And I also just think it comes down to base level personality. Brett is gorgeous, good heart, good woman, but very admittedly tomboyish. And I think Ryan just wants a more quote unquote graceful, a more womanly woman, someone who's more in touch with their feminine energy. And it's just a mismatch all around. The other issue with the cleanliness doesn't help because, again, in Ryan's mind, women should be clean. Women should smell good, and I'm not saying she doesn't smell good, but these are just things. So, like the building blocks of not already being physically attracted to her, then dealing with the anxiety on the honeymoon, then not wanting to try new things at the wedding reception and the honeymoon, then the living conditions, and the fact that neither of them know how to talk to each other. They just kind of talk at each other and they talk in circles. They don't ever get things resolved. They just talk to be talking when they talk, because half the time they don't talk. um Production opens up being super petty. They give us another shot of how Brett is keeping her room and her bathroom. It's a lot. It's a lot, but it speaks to her anxiety in her mind. Usually people who are highly anxious or who are depressed, she could be struggling with a bit of both. And I think she is, just when I see her affect on screen. Unfortunately, sometimes that's how their households look because they don't have the internal motivation. They have very low energy. Um, Most of the energy that she has to muster up to go teach some kids and be a coach. So there are lots of people that we work with. And for lots of people, I know I have been there before in my life as well. Depression and anxiety and things like that are cyclical. They can be seasonal, or sometimes you really are clinically depressed and you need to talk to a professional, get therapy. And if therapy isn't helpful, if the tools that they give you in therapy aren't helpful, sometimes honestly, medication is what you need. And that's not a shameful thing. Like, whatever you need to do to feel better, and to get your life where you want it to be. And I think hopefully if she watches this back on camera, she is able to look beyond just the ickiness of feeling the way she feels and really get herself, into a space of seeking help. Because for me, that's what I'm seeing on screen. Gorgeous woman, gorgeous personality, just I think probably some childhood trauma, but also the past relationships, because she keeps talking about how this continuously happens to her, where she feels like she likes other people more than they like her and things like that. When you have those patterns in your life, you do have to stop and say, why? And not that it's because of you, but yes, something in you is contributing to it. And you need to figure out what that is to fix it. It's hard work. It's not fun work, but it's necessary work. Um, Next, we see Ryan and Johnny playing pool. They said it themselves, or at least Johnny said it. These are two people who should have never met up individually to talk about marriages and relationships. That was the most miserable and pessimistic conversation I've watched in a while. Ryan says that he can't force a connection. He is tired of trying to, and it's just not real. Johnny says that at first he felt like Bao wasn't trying, although she felt she was trying. This week he feels that Bao is trying, however, she's almost trying too much. And that's what Johnny does. Johnny is consistently hot and cold. He's a flip-flopper. He doesn't even know himself or know what he wants. The girl is trying, so he acknowledges that she's trying, but now she's trying too much. You can't win. Bao, quit trying. That, like, just don't. This is about Brett and Ryan, but they met up, so we had to talk about this at some point. So for right now, yeah, Johnny really teed me off with that comment. It was like, what? Okay. Johnny asks if Ryan can just ignore the negative and focus on the positive, and Ryan says no. You can't go through life ignoring the bad. I agree in that you cannot ignore the bad, but you also cannot dwell on the bad. That is why it is important to be honest and to develop your own deal breakers. In my most blissful relationships, there were also things that I didn't like. So how big is the thing that you don't like? And for Ryan's sake, some of the things that he doesn't like are big. But that's where you have to be honest. So there will never be a time where you're 100% happy. I don't care if it is the supermodel that he wants. That supermodel is going to do something that he does not like. And if you continue to harp on whatever the person does versus saying, hey, you did this, this is why I don't like it, this is how it affects me, and give that person that honest communication and then give them a chance to work on it. But there are some things that you will just have to come to accept about your partner if you truly want to be married and have, or be in a long-term relationship and have a partnership. That's just it. It could be, in Bao's case, the snoring. How big is this snoring in the grand scheme of things? Okay, cool. Because that's something that she can't really control. I mean, if she has gone to doctors or whatever, and, maybe she doesn't need a sleep study or the sleep right strips or whatever. But you can't nitpick everything in a person and dwell on everything and then say, well, I can't. It's a mindset switch that these people have to embrace. Focus on the positive. Not that you are ignoring the negative, but that the negative really isn't that bad. Because there's always going to be some negative. That's just the nature of life. Next we'll see Brett with Pastor Cal. And he asks, does she think anything can change in the relationship before decision day? She says yes. If Ryan was open and willing to try, she would be as well. She says that honeymoon Ryan was a completely different person. They have not been talking about their feelings. There's no intimate conversation. And so Pastor Cal's like, let's just get straight to it. Straight no chaser. Ask him to give you a picture of what he thought his wife would be, and let him know that you're not offended if he doesn't describe you. Brett goes back into the self-deprecating that she does. I know it's not me. Not what he said. Even if you know it, ask him what his vision is. That way you can kind of see how and why there's this disconnect and not be personally offended by it. Because if he describes someone that's a polar opposite of you, if he wants the blonde hair, the big book, whatever he wants, that helps you to, like, that would actually help her feel better about herself. I think she thinks it's going to make her feel worse about herself, but it's meant to actually make you feel worse. Because if you are fundamentally not this man's type, that's not on you. That's on him. And you should not change yourself to fit into his mold. Next, he says to ask, when did he give up on the marriage? When did he know it wasn't going to work? And Ryan is like, Brett is like, I think it was a long time ago. And Pastor Cal's like, you might be surprised. You can't, this is why asking questions are important. You can't assume that you know. And he says, if it's over, you might as well go and have these discussions. Get it out. Ryan meets with Dr. Viviana and says that the sticking point for him, Ryan meets with Dr. Pepper and says that the meeting with Dr. Viviana was the sticking point for him in the relationship. That is when he completely felt uncomfortable and didn't think that they could ever come to an agreement because they were already on different pages. Brett was crushing on him and feeling a different way about him than Ryan was feeling for her. They asked, how did you deal with what you didn't like? Dr. Pepper specifically asked it. How did you deal with what you don't like in this marriage? And how did you try to fix it? Ryan is honest and says he didn't. He admits that there has been a lack of communication. And Dr. Pepper says that's not fair to Brett. You have a checkbox in your mind. You're keeping score of, I don't like this, I don't like this, I don't like this. And you're letting it build up, but she's not a mind reader. She's not. Dr. Pepper asks why he wanted to be married at first sight. And Ryan says it was because he wanted to find his person. Dr. Pepper tells him you can't do that without dealing with feelings and having hard conversations. You have to get to know your partner, know her for who she is, see her in both her good light and her bad light, because so far, all you're focusing on is the bad light. You haven't even seen her at her good, at her element. You know, I don't know. I know they edited a lot of this and cut this stuff out, but I wonder, like, since she's a coach, is this her season? Has he been going to any of her games? Like, sometimes seeing a woman or a person, period, in that element, doing what they're actually passionate about will show a different side to them, because she's clearly confident and competent in lots of areas of her life. It just seems like she really struggles in this area. So maybe seeing her and actually getting to know her will help. Honestly, Ryan is very selfish. He doesn't ask deep questions or really ask anything outside of himself. But Ryan admits that he has not been doing that. They don't know each other and they haven't been trying to get to know each other. They have to do more than they've done before. Ryan promises to put forth more effort, and you never know what can happen in the next 2.5 weeks. Okay, he keeps saying that, but I think we already know what's going to happen. Next, Ryan and Brett both meet. Ryan says that he has some hope after the conversation with Dr. Pepper made him think about conversation and how he has been avoiding hard topics. Brett admits that that's not good. However, Brett, I got to get on her a little bit because she didn't ask any of the questions that Pastor Cal gave her to ask him. Yes, they were hard questions. Yes, they were questions that maybe she did not want to hear the answer to, but it was questions that she needed to hear the answer to. Like I said, if not for this relationship, for moving forward. Ryan asked her to call him out on his stuff, and he has said that several times. I don't know if she thinks calling him out will push him further away, but if he's telling you what to do, you have to do it. Like, people are giving you tools, and at this point, Brett is just choosing not to use them. She says she's somewhat checked out, and I think she has kind of just resigned herself to the fact that this won't work. Um, they have to be honest. They keep saying that they're going to be honest, but they're not doing it. Like I said earlier, they keep talking around the issues and talking on the surface level of the issues, but not really getting into the meat and potatoes of the issues. The last scene we see Brett meets with Ryan's sister. She admits that they're not each other's type, but there was a point in early on where they were getting along. The families got along well at the wedding. They were getting along well at the honeymoon. And his sister asks, when did it stop? And Brett says, kind of, once we moved in to the house together. And so his sister says Ryan may be kind of focused on the past. Coming back to Houston maybe gave him thoughts or visions of old relationships. He may be distracted by someone from his past. So I don't know if the sister knows that Ryan is holding a flame for someone else, but that's the tea. That's what she suspects. So if that's the case, I could see that being the case. But if that's the case, that really sucks. Like Ryan should have just said that and gracefully bowed out. I know they signed a contract, they this, they that. The show really needs to work on that. There has to be a way to balance not potentially damaging people who clearly are already a little emotionally fragile versus letting people stay in situations that they know are not going to go anywhere. And I think Ryan knew that up front. Hold on, let me get some water. All right. Yeah, that's it. Let's see. Ryan didn't ask her parents any questions on their wedding day. Good memory. That's the problem. Luna B says the moment he said he's been in long-term relationships but has never been in love, I knew he was a lost cause. And that's a lot of these relationships. I honestly think those should be guidelines. Like production and the experts should have base level guidelines for people who they consider for this show. Someone who's never been in a relationship past a year, someone who has never told anyone else that they love them. I initially thought that Brett and Ryan were a bad parent and an unfair pairing because Ryan was a serial dater and Brett was someone who had not been in a relationship for 2 years and who was a person more geared toward monogamy. I also question Ryan's superficial reasons for wanting to be married. You know, I know, of course, a friend dying is very traumatic. But when your reasons for getting married is all of my other friends are married, one of my friends died, life is too short, that may be, excuse me, my allergies are cutting the food. That may be what pushes you. That should not be the ultimate reason. Because that just means, again, like it's a very superficial reasoning. And as we see, the minute you don't get whatever it is that you want or that you think you're looking for, or when the actual marriage doesn't meet all the rosy ideals you have in your head, you're out. So Sharon F says, Remember, he said he always waits till it's too late with his relationships. He did say that. Sharon F. also said Ryan has got his mind on an Insta model airhead and Brett is insecure. KA says that's how you know it's all about ratings for them. Most of the people, if not all, should not have been casted. Yep. And earlier this year, they did this whole Unmatchables series. And I'm like, yeah, half the people y'all have been choosing lately should have been unmatchable as well. So I spoke about this on my grab bag videos that I do about, how I'm kind of falling out of my love affair with some reality TV because they get popular and then they want to grow the ratings more and more and more. So production does more and more and more to manipulate the situations. Whereas this show fundamentally does not need a lot of manipulation. Strangers literally getting married at first sight. That is as organic as it can be. You don't have to manipulate people, and you shouldn't, to get bigger blow-ups and bigger things. And so since I started watching this in season 1, I've seen how much they change, and it just, I don't know. I'm not at a point where I'm completely done with the show, but I do seriously question the ethics of the show at this point. Next, I don't know who's worse, y'all. Johnny and Bao or Michaela and Zach. Let's just do Johnny and Bao first. Let's get to it. Add them to the screen. That's them. Bao and Johnny. First, we see when he was talking to Ryan, we saw some clips of their recent bowling date. It was a really cute, it looked like they were really having fun. They had some cute banter. Bao didn't want everyone to see that she wasn't the best bowler. Johnny, of course, being Johnny, was trying to brag on the fact that he beat her. Johnny does admit after that conversation with Ryan that Ryan is the last person he should have talked to. And he's absolutely correct because they just feed each other's negativity. When they were getting ready to talk for the dinner, Bao was flossing. So people always have this debate in this Facebook group that I'm in that's about this show, and they constantly come back to that one of those initial conversations where Bao gave some pushback on regularly bathing. And again, I don't know if this is like stuff she threw out there or of like who she was as a single person, or because Johnny said it bothered him, maybe she's trying to get better at it. But I find it very interesting that someone flosses nightly but doesn't bathe regularly. None of that makes sense to me. So either someone's lying or she's just really quirky in that way. But sorry, that was just an aside that came when I saw her like flossing as they were getting ready to go to bed. As they get into bed to have their conversation, Johnny says 3 things are missing from their marriage: trust, communication, and the foundation of a solid friendship. He thinks that if they work on those things, they could be much better. Bao disagrees and says that a pure friendship is counterproductive to emotional bonding and romance. And actually, just on this little point, I agree more with Johnny. The issue is Johnny flip-flops so much. One minute, Johnny wants a friend. The next minute, he wants a sex pot. So it's hard. It's constantly sending mixed messages to Bao in what he really wants in a relationship. And I think it's because he doesn't know. Please stop dating and courting, and definitely stop getting married when you don't even know what you want. It's a recipe for disaster. And he's blaming it on her, but he fundamentally does not know himself and does not know what he wants. He's so confused. He doesn't know what to do with himself. And instead of him recognizing that it's him, he projects it all on her. And it's hard to watch. Like, it really sucks. But I do agree with him that The foundation to any long-term relationship is a friendship. You have to respect your spouse. You have to like your spouse. You have to have fun with your spouse. And also, yes, trust them and have a safe space where you all can openly communicate with each other. And that's usually the basis of a friendship. However, I think if Johnny really wanted that, he should not have done this show. This isn't the show for that. So, yes, I think it's possible for them to do both. I think it's possible to build a friendship while also building an emotional bond and having romance. I don't think it has to be either or. Bao talks about how before, when he complained about the lack of emotion in the marriage, Dr. Viviana gave them tips to ignite the spark, ignite their intimacy. Now we hear that Johnny is taking the intimacy all out. He says that he feels nothing when they are intimate. He's not satisfied. He's just going through the motions. That was rough, Johnny. Bao calls BS. Says that Johnny was very affectionate with her, was very turned on by her. And Johnny says that he doesn't want to just have sex or kiss her. He needs an emotional attachment. And again, I can see a person needing that. Lots of people need an emotional attachment before they just have physical intimacy. But again, he flops so much that, when she was trying to build a friendship and not focusing on intimacy, he complained that it wasn't moving fast enough. And this is what he needed. He wants to be held and cuddled all of the time. Again, he just has so many self issues that he needs to work on, needs to learn how to regulate his emotions, needs to learn how to communicate and talk and express himself without hitting below the belt. And I don't know if he has the capacity to do it yet. I just don't, or if he's willing to do it. Bao points out that he only talks about his needs when this marriage it is a two-way street, and he has to learn how to consider her and her feelings more. Her saying that causes Johnny to blow up. He needs another break. He walks out of the room. He comes back and says that, again, he wants to build a foundation. He feels that their conversation is off. He thinks that she doesn't want to work on the foundation. Bao says we both came in with different expectations and approaches to a relationship. We are trying to mend the two together, but I don't know if that's going to work because so far we have not been able to mend the two together. Again, this scene was really hard to watch for me. Like, Johnny is treating Bao like she's this Raggedy Ann doll, throwing her to and fro, and I really don't like seeing it. He has to work on himself. All of this, pretty much none of this, is Bao's fault. She has been very honest, very transparent, very communicative. And I think part of it is the fact that Johnny doesn't seem to like direct communication. It makes him feel, I don't know, like slighted, because when she said this is a two-way street, he blew up. How does that simple phrase, again, unless editing is cutting out things, how does her very true statement that this is a two-way street make you blow up like that? She didn't say that you all didn't need a foundation. She said that, yes, but we also need this. And if I work on a friendship too much, then you're going to tell me, you're in the friend zone. I only see you as a friend. So she's trying to do both. Have a safe space, be your friend, and also be your little hentai sex kitten that you claim you want. So get it together. Next, we see them meet with Dr. Pepper and Pastor Cal. Dr. Pepper talks to Johnny, admonishes Johnny to learn healthier and better ways to fight. One question for him is that he should ask about is, I'm thinking of new ways of communicating. Would you be willing to work on them with me? Johnny says that their individual perceptions are so different, he doesn't think that they can come to an agreement. Dr. Pepper gives a great, statement about truth and perspective. And she's like, neither side of you all's opinion or your perspective is the truth. And they have to stop keeping score. And that literally is what they're doing, more so Johnny. They have to learn how to talk to each other without being mean. And he keeps saying he needs Bao to get on board with the marriage and building a friendship. No. When you are in an individual therapy session and your therapist tells you something that you need to work on, you don't get to point the fingers at the other person. Bao doesn't need to get on board. You need to learn how to communicate without hitting her below the belt. Like, she keeps trying to get you to focus on you and what you can do to better this situation. Where do these things go left, and how do you contribute to them going left? That doesn't equal getting Bao on board. Bao is talking to Pastor Cal. She says she married a man who's not ready for marriage. She is done feeling unappreciated. Bao feels that Johnny is already 80% out of the door, and I agree. Production shows the numerous times that he's been malicious and verbally abusive to her. She's very frustrated. She starts crying. She doesn't think that Johnny has the emotional maturity to be a good husband and father. Right now, he absolutely does not. Pastor Cal tells Bao to ask Johnny if he was ready to be married. Pastor Cal also tells Bao that because intimacy and everything is out of the way, they do need to go back down to the base floor level of the relationship. Go back to level 1 and do the work there. Play nice with each other, have the light conversations, have the fun dates, and don't go too deep. See if Johnny will go deep on his own. And that will tell her a lot about his capacity in emotional maturity and in emotional intelligence and the ability to build a relationship. Bao says that she hates chit chat, but she sees that Johnny doesn't have the capacity to do much more, so she's willing to take Pastor Cal's advice. Johnny and Bao meet. He again apologizes. I think at this point we're at like apology number 4 or 5 for the things that he said in the past. He asks how they can improve communication. Bao says that she wants to talk about anything that's on her mind and not feel judged about it. She doesn't understand why their disagreements escalate because the issues in her mind are not that big. He also needs to work on considering her perspective. Consider your other mate's perspective in your relationship. Johnny did a good job self-regulating, but his body language and his mannerisms told on him the whole time. His eyes were getting big. You could tell he was getting super agitated just by her confidently and effectively, clearly communicating her issues. Bao says that, if he is ready to be all in and not run away. Johnny has to correct her. He says he hasn't run. He just removes himself because he doesn't want to blow up. He needs time to cool down. And Bao says you can do that without leaving. And I agree. These apartments all have 2 bedrooms. You can go into the other bedroom for an hour or 2 or for the night if you need to. There's no need to keep running back to your own apartment every time something doesn't go your way. Johnny asks what can Bao do to be present in the marriage. Bao says she feels like she has been present. She's been trying, but has stopped somewhat because of how he has been talking to her. She will not tolerate how he talks to her and how he treats her. He has to get better at that. She asked him if he felt he was ready for marriage. Johnny has to be Johnny. He says he was ready for a blank slate, not her. They had met and been on a date 15 years before, and there wasn't a second date for a reason. They never had chemistry. He was never attracted to her. So he did not want to be married to her. I don't know what you say after that. Because to me, if that's what you truly feel, and I guess, the cameras are there, your families are there, all these ceremonies are planned, you can't say that. But you've wasted a lot of time to get to that conclusion. When she was coming down the aisle, you could have been like, oh, no, I've met her before. It won't work. Thank you, but no thank you. But you went through it, and at every turn, you make her feel like it's her when it's really you. You know? I think maybe this is something they need to add since this was the first season, something like this had happened. I know Bao gave her lists, and I guess for some of these people, because they date so much and so often, it's hard to kind of give a list of everybody. But in most cities, the 6 degrees of separation thing is real. In most cities, it's even less than 6 degrees of separation. And for someone who's an active dater, especially on a cultural level, with them being Vietnamese as well, it's very likely that they've run in the same circles. So, I think this happened before with and they were horrible too. Who was it? Luke and Lord, who was that poor girl that they had matched that Luke person with? Luke was horrible. But it was the same thing. He saw it coming down the aisle. He gasped. And, apparently he owned some kind of like speed dating thing. And she had been to an event or something before. But she wasn't his type. And we had to watch them be miserable for 8 months. Yeah. K.A. says, was it Katie? I think it was Katie. Luke and Katie. Poor Katie. I liked Katie. Katie was a nice girl. And Luke was a hot mess. So, I mean, I don't know. Like I said, when you're in a city, it is likely that sometimes you'll pick people who've met each other. But the irony that these people who have met before would then be matched. I mean, Luke couldn't have been matched to someone else. It was just very interesting. So, I don't know how the show can combat that, but this was Johnny, again, what comes up doesn't have to come out. And he is malicious for no reason. Like, he says really ugly things and then has the nerve to say, so we won't hurt each other's feelings. She doesn't say things like that to you. And if your feelings are hurt by direct communication, again, you need some therapy, because most people are not going to coddle you. Your own family, the last episode said you're not in high school anymore because you keep wanting a high school romance. You're not there anymore. You're 35. 35. And if simple, direct communication offends you, you have some self-work to do, sir. Because she is not saying anything ugly or derogatory to you. She's literally expressing how she feels and the issues that are present in the marriage. And you take every chance to, as she said, cut her down. And that's not a good look. It's not healthy for anybody. Nobody would be happy in a relationship like that. The last kind of scene we see them in is this group volleyball game. Overall, the volleyball game looked really fun. All the couples were working well together. Bao shows up apart from Johnny, but she shows up in this little cheerleader outfit. She looks so cute in her pom-poms. It was just about a great energy. She brings a great energy to the spaces that she enters. Johnny hugs her, runs up to her and hugs her, and Bao is like, I don't know what's going on with that. Maybe he has changed his mind yet again. Maybe he loves the outfit. And so she finally says, yeah, it's probably the outfit. And it was the outfit. It played into his little dress up hentai porn fantasies or whatever. So, and I also think he wants to put on a show in front of the other couples. So that was that for them. Let me see, y'all. Johnny, Sophie says Johnny is as bad as Luke and Chris. Black Tornado says, I wish the experts had intervened sooner. I do too. I feel like in the earlier seasons, they had more interaction with the experts. It seems like this season, they only see the experts like once every 2 weeks, sometimes once a week. But it feels like a long time in between the times when they see the experts. Ashley Cox said, and he said that right after Bao told him to talk to her with respect. Absolutely. Like, he doesn't hear anything that she says. KA says, but these men will sleep with them any chance they get. Lee Pepper, and he ran and hugged her. He's fake. He just wants to put on a show. That's why he gets mad when she says things about their relationship, because he's also one of those people, kind of like Chris, and who else was like that? Like, they don't want anything negative to be said about them on camera. It's like, no, that's not how life works. And it's not negative. Like, it's just, we are having a disagreement. Adults have disagreements, but they don't want anything that they perceive may paint them in a bad light coming out on TV. It's exhausting. So let's get to the final fireworks, honey. The final fireworks. And of course, they come from the resident firework factory, which is none other than Michaela and Zach. Michaela and Zach are back at it, popping off per usual. So let's talk about them and what happened this episode. First, we see Michaela meeting with Pastor Cal. She says that things are going better in the marriage. They had 3 to 4 weeks of bad, about 1 or 2 weeks of good. She says she thinks that they were matched because they are both strong-willed, they're both goofy, they're ambitious, they both like a challenge. She says her unanswered question would be, what was the picture of marriage that Zach had in his mind? What did it look like to him? Pastor Cal says that that's a very good question, because we often paint unrealistic pictures in our minds and then measure reality by the unrealistic picture. And that's true of everything. That's not just marriage. Yeah, lots of people, especially if it's like a goal that you are pursuing, or maybe if there's something in your career, you're at one level and you think once you get to this level, life is going to change and things are going to be so much better, and it won't. Especially if you don't resolve whatever your issues are. It's like when people talk about money, right? Everybody always wants more money, wants to make more money, more money, more money. But a lot of times it really does matter how you already manage the money you have. Because if you make more money and you continue your poor spending habits, or you get more bills to match your new income, you're still going to struggle. You have to live below your means, as unfun that may be. You have to live below your means. You have to budget accordingly. You have to prioritize. Sometimes you have to sacrifice, whether you're making 40,000 or whether you're making 100,000 or 200,000, right? So it's the same thing. Like, people think once you get this, what we kind of talked about the last episode, this whole destination happiness myth, it's not a thing. And so that's a very good question, because as he's already said, him, Ryan, Johnny, Jose, all of them have painted very unhealthy and unrealistic pictures of marriage and long-term relationships. They want, these va-va-voom goddess Venus women who are Stepford wives as well, porn star in the sheets, cooking and cleaning every night, perfectly knows how to entertain company, works as well, independent woman, but not too independent. It's a lot. And you can get a lot of that, but a lot of times you won't get all of that. So that's why you got to pick and choose what's most important to you. The whole time Michaela was talking to Pastor Cal, again, just things that I noticed in the scene. And I'm a Black woman raised in the South. I know some of y'all are too. Michaela's purse was sitting on the floor and it bothered me. I needed somebody to come in and pick up that purse and put it either, there was a strap. The strap could have been hung up on the back of her chair, or they could have, like, if she was worried like that someone may go in her purse, they need to be offering them like a little set of lockers or something where she could lock it up, or they could just sit on a chair where it's in her eyesight. But get that purse off the floor, girl. You got a Black mama and a bunch of Black aunties and a bunch of Black sisters. I'm sure somebody told you not to sit your purse on that floor. Don't do that. Okay. Sorry for my little side piece, but that bothered me the whole time that she was talking. Next, he asked her, what does she want out of the relationship with Zach? She said she wants Zach to be happy. His unhappiness affects her, and she doesn't want him to be unhappy, especially if it is because of her. Pastor Cal argues that happiness is not solely self-generated. You do contribute to your spouse's happiness, and you can contribute to it. I agree with Pastor Cal, but I also disagree. On a fundamental level, the person is in charge of their own happiness. And yes, there can be situations that may contribute to the person then becoming unhappy, such as the issue with Michaela blowing up. However, that fundamental happiness, that's why people tell you can't come into a relationship as a broken person. Because expecting Michaela to make him happy is unfair and impossible. It won't happen. And the reality is, and we'll see it when he gets to his interview with Dr. Pepper, Zach is not happy. Zach, I'm not saying there should be an age cutoff or age range for this show, but Zach doesn't know himself. It's why he's never had a successful relationship over 9 months. It's why he's never told anyone he loves them. Zach does not know who he is. He doesn't know what makes him happy and what happiness is to him. He doesn't. And he admits that. So she can't go in and supplement what's not already there. I do like, though, how Pastor Cal framed what Michaela can do, which is how she can create a safe space for Happy Zach to return. So yes, as a spouse, I think most people endeavor for their home to be their sanctuary on both sides. So I do think it's important that she look at ways to make his time with her a safe space, a space that fosters openness, honesty, transparency, and love. And so she can do that. She can work on how to help curate that safe space for him. Michaela says she wants Zach to know how to get to happy. And her point is well taken as well. Zach has to know how to get to his own happy. Pastor Cal says absolutely, but Michaela also contributes, and I will agree there. He asks her if she wants this marriage more than she doesn't want it, and she doesn't know. Zach meets with Dr. Pepper. He says he is missing the meant to be in their marriage. Again, I think he has romanticized this version of love at first sight. It was destined. It was fate. And people think that, but a lot of times that's not really what happens. You make it work. Or there's enough in common where that may be initial feelings, but even if you get past those initial infatuation, butterfly type feelings, you have to actively choose your person every day. You have to actively wake up and choose the relationship and pursue the relationship and do the work. So he's wondering if this is a meant to be versus him actively choosing their marriage and trying to make it work. Is he really happy, or is he just trying to convince himself? Dr. Pepper lets him know that she personally does not believe in being meant to be. She believes in opportunities, and that Michaela and her raw personality, her raw attributes present an opportunity to Zach where they could be very good together if they both choose to do the work to make the relationship work. She asks, what does he need to say yes? He says he needs more of what they've been doing this last week or so. More hanging out, more going on dates. He needs her to keep it up, getting to know each other, and that he'll be more optimistic that they may have a chance to stay together. Dr. Pepper suggests asking her what he can do to make her feel more secure in the relationship. Insecurity is never good. Zach says that's important because he wants her to be herself. He doesn't want her to think that every time something happens, he's going to want out or want to leave. Dr. Pepper gives great advice and tells them to avoid extreme terms in their conversations and to ask questions. Now, we're going to get to the asking questions part in a minute because there's always a caveat to asking questions, right? Zach starts thinking about his past with Michaela and how he has probably never asked really good questions or never asked questions in general. And then he breaks down crying again, talking about his perfectionism and never feeling good enough himself. So he knows he imposes those impossible standards on others. Dr. Pepper tells him he is undermining his happiness and others' happiness when he does this. Zach shares, that he has realized that his perfectionism has been the cause of the demise of most of his relationships. He knows his perfectionism is unrealistic, but he does it in pretty much every phase of his life: school, work, everything. He doesn't know how to stop. And that is where, lots of people beyond even his age struggle with this. I struggled with it for a long time as well. Perfectionism is a beast, but it's an impossible standard that you cannot live up to. And lots of people who are, as Zach is, the eldest sibling, he's the oldest child in the family. I know somebody said before he's the middle. He's not the middle. He's the oldest. And he said that before, but he's the oldest. Hunter is the middle. Tolliver is the youngest. And he himself said that one of his reasons for wanting to be on this show is because his other two brothers are in serious relationships, and Hunter was getting married. Hunter actually did get married in August. So he basically wanted to beat his brother down the aisle because he's the big brother. He feels he should do things first and set an example for his brothers. I understand those feelings, but it's just not really how life works. You all are adults now. You don't have to keep setting an example for your brothers. And I don't know if that's something he just felt or that his parents really imposed upon him as a child, or if it's just something he's taken on for himself. But it's not healthy. Either way it goes. I went down a whole rabbit hole on Facebook looking at pictures from Hunter's wedding and everything. It was a very nice wedding. But anyway, and Tolliver is actually in medical school with somebody I know from New Orleans. So I think Zach may just be feeling that he's the oldest and he's comparing his quote unquote level of achievement with his brother's level of achievement, whether that's career-wise, since Tolliver is in medical school, or if it's just on the family aspect, since his parents have been married for a long time, and now his younger brother is married and has been in a long-term relationship too. I just want him to let that go. Like he's putting himself in a jail that he doesn't have to be in. Michaela asks him what marriage the next episode, I'm sorry, that we see them in the next scene, Michaela is asking him the hard questions. What did marriage look like for you? He says the image to him was him and his wife making breakfast, listening to music, kids running around. There was unconditional love. Both partners made each other better. And that his wife makes him unbelievably happy. Again, it's a verbiage issue, but the verbiage issue leads to the mindset issue. He is expecting his wife to make him happy. Cannot happen. You got to be happy and content on your own with yourself. Content doesn't mean complacent. That just means you're happy. There may be some things you need to work on. You're actively working towards them, but you understand that the goal is progress, not perfection. Michaela's vision was romance, someone who was goal oriented, that they are partners working together, having visions and aiming for big things. She asked him the goal for this marriage, and he says he wants to do more things together, talk more, have a vision. Michaela lets him know that her guard is up. She's hesitant about them moving forward. And she needs him to be consistent in both his words and actions for her to be secure. She wants to believe that he wants the marriage, but she doesn't. And Zach still doesn't really understand why she doesn't feel that. I think both of them have put up walls and just want to admit. I mean, she's somewhat admitting it here because she says she's hesitant and has her guard up, but I think they both are. They both have. Next, we see Michaela and Zach fighting once they got back from the volleyball game over sleeping in the same bed. We learn that somebody, I don't think it was ever clear who asked the question, either Zach or Michaela, but one of them asked, hey, what would your answer be if decision day was today or tomorrow? They both say no, according to Zach. And since they both said no, Michaela says, okay, well, I don't want to sleep with you in the bed. You can sleep in the other room. Zach doesn't understand, says it's stupid. If they're trying to grow and work on the marriage and possibly build something over the next 2.5 weeks, why would he sleep in a different bed? And if he's going to sleep in a different bed, he's going to go home and sleep in the bed that he wants to sleep in. Michaela doesn't want him to leave the apartment, but then doesn't want him to sleep in the same bed. And she then is adamant that she did not say she said she did not know. It was a lot of talking in circles. But what it boils down to is, this is a caveat I was going to talk about with asking questions. Don't ask questions that you don't want the answer to, or that you are not prepared to hear the answer to. Because when someone gives you their honest answer, you have to be prepared to accept it. Now, the person doesn't have to accept it the way you want to accept it. So it seemed to me that Michaela had accepted the answer and then it's like, okay, well, I'm cool. We can sleep in separate beds. To that extent, if she was intent on him sleeping in a separate bed, she should have been fine with him leaving the apartment. Because I think what's being unsaid is that when they sleep in the same bed, there is some intimacy happening. And she's chosen that if you're not going to say yes to me, I'm not going to keep giving my goodies to you. And that's fine. She doesn't even want the temptation to be there. But if you draw that line in the sand and he says, well, I'm going home, let him go home. If y'all have both said that it's going to be a no, even though you claim you're really working on it, it's going to be a no. So I don't think either person was necessarily wrong. I think the reactions are wrong. Zach the next scene we see Zach on FaceTime or Skype or something, telling his brothers about the recent argument. Apparently they were supposed to have a conversation with Michaela. Maybe the production had set up a meeting like they did with Ryan and Ryan's sister and Brett. So instead he gets on camera with his brothers, tells them about the recent argument. He wanted to leave. She said verbally, okay, you can go. But then he says she texted him an hour later and says, since you left the apartment and that's not what I wanted, I just didn't want to sleep in the same bed with you, I'm going to move completely out of the apartment tomorrow. And he says that she did, in fact, move completely out of the apartment. And she even took the seasonings. Michaela, petty, you know. Um, I'm sure you had seasonings at your own house, girl. You could have kept the seasonings. um, Michaela really strikes me as a person who, me and our friends would go backing around and forth on like some petty things you would do when you're breaking up with someone. They're always like, take all the toilet tissue out of the house, take all of their shoestrings out of their shoes. One of the funniest ones I've ever seen, not saying that I would do it because I just don't have that type of energy. If I'm done, I'm done. But it was hilarious. Take all of the paper off of the cans for like the canned goods. So like take all of that off and throw it in, take it with you or throw it in the trash or something. And then that way they don't know what their canned goods are. It's like a surprise every time they open something. Just a little petty, just something to get on people's nerves. That was hilarious to me. So Michaela showed her full petting. His brothers are like, that's ridiculous. That's uncalled for. That's childish. And it was, but I mean, Zach says this type of reaction is why he doesn't believe that they will work. He gets off the phone with his brothers. He tries to call Michaela again. She won't answer. That's the end. And then we see the previews for the next week, next episode. They are on the couples retreat. And Hurricane K has definitely shown up and is running around the resort like a Tasmanian devil. So we'll see when that happens. I've already said it before. Zach and Michaela, I think people harp so much on Michaela because of her reactions. And be clear, her reactions are not, she needs help for that. She needs some anger management. But they both need some serious therapy. And Zach shows it every time when he breaks down into a talk. So y'all, here, last week I gave you 2 books that would be good for Johnny. I mean, a book that would be good for Johnny. Here are 2 books that I would definitely recommend to Zach and anyone who struggles with feelings of perfectionism or feeling like you're not good enough. Yeah, and they're just really good books. I've read them myself. They have helped me throughout life. One is The Subtle Art of Not Giving a F, The Counterintuitive Approach to Living a Good Life by Mark Manson. This book actually examines like the hypocrisy of positive thinking, in the sense that not necessarily the hypocrisy of it, but the fallacy in positive thinking. And it's not so more so about positive thinking, because kind of like what Brett was and Ryan, was saying, you can't only think of the positive and ignore the negative. Life is life. So you're going to have some negative things that happen. You're going to have negative things that you can control and not control. So it's more about your response to that thing, to those things. When someone slights you at work, do you get worked up about it? Do you let yourself get worked up into a tizzy and be angry and ready to cuss everybody out? Or do you simply not give a F? Is it really worth it in the grand scheme of things? So this book really gives practical tools of not letting things really ruminate in your mind and bother you like that. Just again, working on your response and not letting your environment dictate your response. So it's a really good book. Anyone who has issues with that or just wants to know more, knowledge on those things, you should pick that book up and read it. Another book is by the PhD, Dr. Robert J. Fury, You Are Good Enough, Overcoming Feelings of Inadequacy. And no one wants to really admit that they feel inadequate, but lots of us do. That's a part of life. Sometimes you'll walk into spaces where you feel like you don't belong. how did I get here? Why do they want me? Everybody is more educated than me, or everybody has more money than me. And, am I enough? So this book gives you actual tools, not just venting to people. Like, it's great to vent and get everything out. That's a great part of therapy. But then you need actual tools and methods that you can practice and work on developing these feelings of being secure in yourself, that you can walk into any space and own the room. So check those out. Those are two very good books that I love, and I would recommend for Zach in all the emotions that he expressed with Dr. Pepper. He's a good looking kid, man, I should say. He's a young man. Comes from a great family. He has done well in his career so far. He's finished college. Like, he has to quit putting this measuring stick up against him and others. Comparison is truly the thief of joy. And I just want him to feel better about himself so that he cannot impose these impossible beliefs, standards on himself and on others. And really, really get it together. So if you or anyone struggles with some of those feelings, those are some good sources. All right. KA says, I read The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F. It's a good read. It really is a good read. Midwife Crystal says, Brett can use the one on the right. Kamiko Buford says, oh my God, the paper off the canned goods. Okay, Patty LaBelle. God, it's so funny. Midwife Crystal says, Michaela took those seasoning but does not cook. I didn't get the vibe she knew what she was doing in the kitchen from their cooking date. Again, that girl was just being petty. She knew he wanted that. And for some reason, I didn't know it until I was being nosy on Facebook that Zach and his family are from Louisiana. So she know he wanted that. What did they have on the table when they were arguing? Peter, was it Peter Satcheries? Anyway, she knew he wanted that Creole seasoning. That's what it was. So she should have left it there. KA says, yeah, how Michaela had nothing good to say about her kind of confirmed it to me. Let me see. Oh, KA says, I did, and the body language on Unfiltered says a lot. I peep everything. Oh, yeah, there we go. Tony Satcheries. Why was I calling the man Peter? I don't know what's going on with me today. But that's pretty much it, y'all. I have another stream scheduled. I'm probably gonna move it back to 10 after 4. We're doing another installment on this red flag thing that's going on. I want to talk about some red flags in the church. So I'm not going to do any call-ins today, but I really do thank you all for the engagement. I thank you all for joining in the chat. If you have something that you want to say, or if you catch the replay, please leave a comment after this video goes off live. Leave it down in the comment section so we can drive up the engagement for the channel and get it back out there in the algorithm. I thank you all for your support. Thank you for joining me, Beauties and Beaus, and fellow Married at First Sight fans. I love this show. Even though the experts in production get on my nerves, I want them to get it back on the right track, because I think this has the potential to be a great show. And it gives, when the experts actually show up, I think they do really well in their counseling sessions and with calling the individual spouses out on their crap. They don't just let them blame the other party. They demand, or at least verbally demand, that they look at themselves and do some self-work as well. And I really like that. I'm an advocate of that, something that I believe in, that I have actively been doing. And I think this world will change a lot if more people start confronting their own demons and trying to be better persons for themselves, for their relationships, for their future children or their current children, and for the world. Right? So I will see y'all if you are coming over to the red flag relay, red flags in the church. I will see you there. And if not, I will see you. Let me see. I'll be back on here tomorrow with the grab bag. Probably depends on when I get off work, but probably around 7 or 7:30. And yeah, we have some more stuff coming. So please subscribe to the channel. Join the community here. It's Scared of Beautiful. Everything that we're trying to do. I stayed up in London, England to call me. Oh, okay, Mamsie. Are you gonna show? You know you gotta show your face, Mamsie. Let me see. Copy to clipboard. I'll go move the other link back. But come on, it's dropped. There's the link. Come in, tell me what you have to say about this episode. I love to speak with you. I'll let you get your points in since you are all the way over in England. And I know that is a big time gap. So come on in. Come on in the room. You removed your hair and makeup, girl. How fast did you do that? I just said that I wasn't. That was like 5 minutes. Throw the hair back on and slap the lipstick back on. Like, what are you talking about? I'm gonna give you 3 more minutes, ma'am. And anybody else who wants to click the link, push the button, push the button. But if not, we're gonna roll on over to these red flags in 30 minutes. I'm gonna just have to push the stream back so that we can get to it. Hopefully next week now. Girl. Okay. I'm gonna hold you to that. Next week in London, we will hear from Miss Mamsie. Girl, you know it's late here. Okay. All right, y'all. So I'll talk to y'all next week about Married at First Sight. If you want to come hop on over and talk about red flags, we'll be doing that in about 30 minutes. And I'll see y'all next time. I love y'all. Bye.